the story of the brave mushroom warrior is only just beginning to unfold. As you will recall, a young gamer, named Frog, was in a hurry to go on a date, and unfortunately, was unable to attend it, because he was hit by a car on the way. He's reborn and has to fulfill some important mission, to be reborn and go on a date. But, the only thing he knows about himself so far, is now his body, in the form of the simplest mushroom, which is in the middle of the forest, surrounded by snails that do something, to look at each other, and chew the grass. And absolutely nothing else. Frog was so stunned, that it wasn't even able to describe the shock he was in, and it was totally normal. Seeing how difficult it was, the system immediately contacted him, and welcomed him to a new location, also surrounded by many snails. I understand your feelings and worries, it's really hard to take everything in one moment, the system said. But, since the game has already started, it means only that there is no time to delay, simply know and you need to develop and absorb all the information, as soon as possible. Which is why all the information is going to go into his mind, right now, so he can stop being distracted, which he certainly can't understand yet. Now, he knows this world is filled with both magic and miracles. Despite the fact that every region of the world is full of magic and uncertainty, they are all united by the same natural ecology, which is on the brave continent. In the past, humans and monsters have lived in harmony and helped each other in various situations. Strong monsters did hard work for people that they couldn't do, and those people who have succeeded in using magic have used it to help monsters close their basic needs for survival and prosperity when faced with challenges. Everything was fine, harmony was everywhere, everyone was happy. Until one day, a terrible event occurred, when a fearful and dark demon, named Golem came to the village, and brought terror to all its inhabitants, both monsters and ordinary people. Golem was the top of the monster, everyone thought he was the leader, but he hated that people thought they were above him. He decided to take revenge on them, so he assembled an army of demons, to attack and conquer the territory of the people. The people did not stand by and gathered all their strength, to defend themselves, which gave rise to many guilds that, on the king's orders, began to destroy the monsters en masse. Finally, after the combined efforts of 6 brave and strongest warriors, they were finally able to defeat him and close. Because the demon golem's magic power was so strong, the warriors distributed it in 6 different places: Castle of Time, Colorful Desert, Underwater World, Wind Valley Grassland, and even Pulse Volcano. And also, in Land of the Dead. And even after the big monster was shut down, the mainland was never able to return to its former state, which was a harmonious atmosphere, as harmony was already broken, as humans and monsters could no longer live together, as before. Despite the fact that the demon golem was printed, his faithful followers still continued to nightmare people and wander the lands, causing chaos and panic everywhere. They also tried to find ways to create unrest that would allow them to find and free their king. Here comes again a system that explains to our newly selected hero that if a big demon golem had been successfully released, then the brave mainland will be overwhelmed. After these words, Frog's body was covered with cold sweat with fear and understanding of what was happening. After all, this is precisely its main mission, to prevent the destruction of the continent and to do everything that this did not happen, and that is why he was chosen by the system. Time is running out, and the frog mission is already beginning. Whether he has any more questions, he can ask them right now. So, without hesitation, he asks again to clarify that if he succeeds in his mission, will he be able to return to his home world and go on a date? The system responds, bingo, which confirms the agreement. So, our hero gets his brain so boiled, and he goes on a rampage, saying, "Bingo, your ass, if you want me to win, then turn me into a hero, why did you give me the mushroom part?" Angered and amused, Frog falls to the floor and tries to get up. But, the system once again asks him to use his body more slowly, and hurry as the new task is coming. After unsuccessful attempts to get up, he asks the system to turn him into at least a skeleton or goblin. Snails and spiders will also fit, but to move like a mushroom is really, very, very difficult for him. Why did the system turn it into a mushroom? Because moving becomes very difficult, especially for the protagonist. He gives up and loses faith in himself, beginning to think that he will never again return to the original world, as he cannot defeat such a monster. But the system does not matter what the player has decided, as the game will start exactly when it is supposed to, whether Frog wants it or not. The countdown begins, and the snails run away to their sides. Then the system gives him a mission in which it tells him that he must survive a certain amount of time, because they are approaching. Frog was shocked to see the sound and the light at the end of the tunnel, and wondered just one question: who is approaching him? As soon as the countdown ended and the game began, a gang of schoolchildren with sticks flew into the woods, which began to run around and shout that they would destroy everything. Frog is likely to survive this massive attack by schoolchildren, as it is still a simple mushroom that can't even move, as it is with such skills to overcome the fierce monster. It is not clear yet. But our story does not end there, and only begins to develop more and more. Meanwhile, the story continues, and our main character, Frog, is still trying to recover from the shock and influx of schoolchildren, eager to destroy absolutely everything in their path of schoolchildren. He really understands that they are very dangerous, as they destroy everything in their path, without any remorse, and he still has to try to survive in order to remain unharmed and reach the next stage. That is why he rallied from everyone, using all his strength, and quickly jumped back to the nearest cover. After all, one should not exclude the fact that children can be like a monster, and there are no guarantees that they do not pose any danger to him. Perhaps they are also here to destroy it, without any remorse, just as they have already done to the snails on numerous occasions, and continue to do so. Just look at what they are ready to go to further mock defenseless snails, using the example of one schoolboy who, even at the risk of being punished by his mother, simply takes and steals her laundry pole, which will help him destroy advanced red snails in a matter of seconds. Defenseless snails don't even know where to go anymore, and just try to hide, at least in their shells, because, unfortunately, they don't have enough speed to escape. Children begin to insult and mock snails, shake them out of their shells, simply hit them against various objects, and raise them to a height much higher than the one at which the snails are used to being. Just like that, for fun. Seeing all this, the green snail was very frightened and began to run away abruptly, with all his might, to save himself. But this, unfortunately, was not enough at all, and she was just as suddenly caught, when she did not even have time to look around. Perhaps, not all of them are savages, because our green snail was picked up by a beautiful girl, who began to praise her beauty, and thought about taking the snail into her home as a pet. To which, he had a happy and at the same time very surprised look, that he would not have the same fate as his teammates. But first, the girl decided that it would be more important to improve and collect materials for transmission in the first place, and began to laugh very hard and squeeze the snail. From this, she simply could not stand it, and shattered into pieces, it would seem, at the hands of such a sweet and, at first glance, naive girl. "I collected one, but there are still 9 of the same," the girl said with a laugh, and threw the green snail, along with the pot, into her inventory, which she also threw into the depths of the forest, as if nothing had happened. While all the children were having fun and laughing, the snails continued to run away, trying to somehow escape such an influx of strangers, in order to survive. Now, it is not surprising that Frog, who, by the way, watched all this from a height, was given such a seemingly easy task, one of the very first. It is scary to even imagine what tasks, on the way to the monster, will await him further. Seeing a sad and unpleasant picture of what was happening, he reported that he no longer felt that he was playing a game, and had changed his thinking. Now for him, these children are exactly the same, real monsters. And then immediately, a sharp blow, and bang, bang, from which one of the school children simply flew off at great speed into concrete, losing almost all of his health and the desire to continue destroying snails. On this, he lost almost all his experience points, and his wooden stick was also damaged, and he himself will be teleported back to his village, where he came from. All the surrounding schoolchildren, who a second ago were having so much fun, suddenly froze and began to look at what was happening, as well as at each other, with incomprehension. Chew, chew, chew. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a harsh scream and a snail biker appears in front of them, even though he usually rides a snowboard. His name is Snail Daddy. Since childhood he has dreamed of being a biker, although he usually snowboarding all alone in the woods, although he loves his family very, very much. Meanwhile, Frog keeps looking around the corner, and realizes that this character is really different from all the previous ones, and it would be nice to know his level and get to know him in more detail. To which the system immediately answers and shows the result. It turns out that the ability to identify characters is one of the superpowers of our hero, that we have already learned. Suddenly, a crowd of schoolchildren spotted Daddy Snail and, disregarding what had happened to their comrade, abruptly wanted to destroy him and take Snail for their collection. They jumped on him en masse and a fight broke out, with banging and dust flying from all corners. But Daddy Snail was not as simple and ordinary as the previous snails, and was already able to give them a really strong and good fight, as a result of which, he defeated and sent back to the village almost every schoolboy who attacked him. Already on his way back, the snail is stopped by an unknown voice, who informs him that his skateboard was broken first and kids left the snail to be caught. Remembering his skateboard, and the happy moments associated with it, the snail begins to cry and get angry at the same time. But, there is absolutely no time, and the phrase continues, "I have been waiting for this moment, since the last time you defeated me. I must destroy you," said the unknown man, and ran at him with his sword. Chew, chew, chew. Out of anger, Daddy Snail also began to run at his opponent to get revenge, primarily for his skateboard, which can no longer be returned, thanks to which the battle began. The snail outpaces his opponent's blow, and bites his leg with all his might, then starts trying to do it even harder, in order to get revenge. But, unfortunately, the boots turn out to be protected and no significant damage was done to them, and the snail itself flew away from the impact of the foot far into the woods. The opponent continued his insults, emphasizing that without his skateboard the snail is absolutely nobody, and he, in turn, prepared and created his equipment for about 2 months, because of which, the snail now cannot overpower him in any way. Rising from his fall, Daddy Snail was ready to go into one last fight, and the thought that he must defend his family filled him and gave him strength, for it was because of it that he could not afford to lose in any way. Frog couldn't stand it and also started shouting words of support, from the bushes with all his might, toward Daddy Snail. But, one precise blow and everything ended very, very sadly. The snail fell unconscious on the floor, where its story had already ended. We lost another bright and kind hero who only wanted to protect his family. The opponent could not be pleased, and even showed respect to him himself, stating that he was indeed a difficult monster, after which he began to pull him out of his shell, rejoicing and laughing, that he really could do it, and could also become brave. Looking at this whole picture, Frog quietly began to gnash his teeth in horror and, standing under the tree, as a mushroom should, quietly mutter the question of whether he could even stay in this place unharmed, and who would come to save him, after all. But, do not forget that this is only one of his very first missions, which he must pass flawlessly. Hearing some strange sound in the bushes, someone stopped abruptly. It was our Frog's voice, which everyone heard, even though he was speaking in a whisper. It was another schoolboy, who decided to have a laugh and see if there really are more snails out there, trying to hide from them. As they got closer to the bushes, and opened them, the children still find our mushroom, which clearly also could not expect it, and begin to scream loud and strong, with fear and panic, because this is not the snail that they are so used to seeing. Friends, the sequel will be available very soon, so subscribe so as not to lose it, and also like and write your comment. It will be interesting to know your opinion, for example, whether you like this chapter or not, interesting to see the continuation or not. And things like that. It'll be interesting to read. See you in the next videos.